In the heart of Alaska's untamed wilderness, where nature's rule is absolute, the small town of Tazlina stood as a solitary haven amidst the endless expanse. It was a place where the wild was always a step away, a constant reminder of nature's unforgiving embrace. This was where the Mer family chose to call home, seeking a peaceful life away from Anchorage's bustling streets. Mandy Mer, born on July 19, 1980, was the jewel of this frontier family. With her wide, curious eyes that mirrored the clear Alaskan skies and a spirit as free as the winds that swept across the tundra, she was a child of nature. The Mers believed they had found a sanctuary, a place where their children could grow amidst safety and serenity. It was the summer of 1991, a season of endless daylight, when the sun barely dipped below the horizon. Mandy, on the cusp of her 11th birthday, was a bundle of energy, her laughter a common melody in the small community. She spent her days exploring the picturesque landscapes with her friends, embracing the wild heart of Alaska. On the fateful day of August 22, Mandy called her friend Erin, inviting her over. A plan was set: meet halfway. Mandy also reached out to her best friend, April, who lived just a few doors down. With her mother's hesitant permission, Mandy stepped out into the world, a world she knew as well as the back of her hand. As she walked down the familiar path, her mother watched from the window, a silent sentinel. The meeting with April went as planned, but a simple stumble and a scraped knee sent April into a nearby store for a Band-Aid. Mandy waited outside, the minutes ticking by in the still Alaskan air. But when April returned, Mandy was nowhere to be seen. The tranquility of Tazlina was shattered in that instant. A frantic search began. Neighbors, friends, the police, everyone united in a desperate quest to find the young girl who had vanished as suddenly as a mist in the morning sun. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of a mystery that would haunt the once peaceful town, unraveling a dark truth that lay hidden beneath the serene facade of Tazlina. The disappearance of Mandy Mer was a ripple that would soon turn into a tempest, revealing the darkest corners of the human heart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over Tazlina, a sense of unease gripped the town. Mandy's disappearance was more than a mystery. It was a breach in the fabric of this close-knit community. The police, led by seasoned Officer John Harker, launched an extensive search. Harker, a man who had seen the harshness of Alaskan wilderness, knew the stakes were high. He mobilized the town, turning every resident into a seeker, every eye into a vigilant watch. The search parties combed through the dense forests and along the riverbanks, places where Mandy had often played. Harker considered every possibility. A misstep in the wild, an unfortunate encounter with wildlife, perhaps even a hide-and-seek game gone wrong. But as hours turned into days with no trace of Mandy, a chilling realization dawned. They were not dealing with a simple case of a lost child. Mandy's family was in turmoil. Her father, a stoic man who had always felt secure in this secluded town, now questioned his decision to move here. Her mother, who had watched her daughter disappear around the corner, replayed that moment endlessly, wishing she had called Mandy back. Amidst the search, a glimmer of hope emerged. A local store owner remembered seeing a girl resembling Mandy talking to someone in a car. This fleeting observation turned the tide of the investigation. The possibility of abduction brought a new wave of fear. Now, every stranger was a suspect. Every car passing by was scrutinized. Harker and his team began the painstaking task of interviewing residents, checking alibis, and piecing together the events of that fateful day. The once trusting community now eyed each other with suspicion. The thought that one of their own could be responsible for Mandy's disappearance was unfathomable. As the search expanded, so did the theories. Was Mandy taken by someone she knew? Was there a predator lurking in this isolated paradise? The answers seemed as elusive as the northern lights that danced in the sky above. Meanwhile, Mandy's friends, Erin and April, racked with guilt and fear, became the heart of this search. They retraced their steps, called out her name into the wilderness, and held on to the hope that Mandy would emerge from the woods, smiling and unharmed. But as the Alaskan summer waned and the nights grew longer, the mystery of Mandy Mer deepened, casting a long dark shadow over Tazlina. The town that once slept with doors unlocked now lay awake, listening for any sound, any clue that would bring their girl back home. The investigation into Mandy's disappearance reached a feverish pace as days turned into weeks. Tazlina, once a tapestry of communal trust and simplicity, was now riddled with suspicion and fear. Officer John Harker, with a heavy heart, expanded the search beyond the town's boundaries, aware that every passing moment diminished the chances of finding Mandy unharmed. Amidst the turmoil, an unexpected breakthrough surfaced. A hiker, wandering beyond the usual trails, stumbled upon a disturbing scene in a secluded area, a piece of clothing that unmistakably belonged to Mandy. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation team. Harker, with a grim expression, cordoned off the area. Forensic experts swept through, collecting every possible clue. The serene Alaskan wilderness had transformed into a grim crime scene. Back in town, the Mer family grappled with a torrent of emotions. The uncertainty was agonizing. Mandy's room, adorned with posters of wildlife and stars, stood untouched, a silent testament to a life abruptly paused. Her father clung to hope, while her mother was consumed by guilt, replaying the day Mandy vanished over and over in her mind. The community's unity began to fracture under the strain of the unsolved mystery. Whispered conversations filled the local diner, and suspicious glances were exchanged in the grocery store aisles. The once friendly smiles had faded, replaced by a collective apprehension. In a significant turn, a local mechanic named Charles Smithhart became a person of interest. Known for his quiet demeanor and skill with machinery, Smithhart had been a fixture in the community for years. But inconsistencies in his statements about the day Mandy went missing raised red flags. The town, already on edge, reacted with a mix of shock and disbelief. Could someone among them be hiding a sinister secret? Harker, seasoned yet shaken by the case's complexities, delved deeper. He learned that Smithhart was often seen offering rides to children in town, a gesture once viewed as neighborly now cast in a suspicious light. As the investigation intensified, the evidence began to mount against Smithhart. Fibers and paint traces found at the crime scene matched materials from his workshop. The community's disbelief turned into a cold realization that the monster they feared might have been living among them all along. The saga of Mandy's disappearance was no longer a simple case of a missing child. It had morphed into a tale of betrayal, a stark reminder that evil could lurk in the most unexpected places. As the autumn leaves began to fall, covering the paths Mandy once roamed, Tazlina braced for the harrowing truth that was slowly unraveling. The innocence of a small town was lost, and the impending winter seemed more foreboding than ever before. The once tranquil town of Tazlina was now engulfed in a chilling suspense. Charles Smithhart, a familiar face to many, had become the epicenter of a dark storm. The evidence that mounted against him was like a slow, steady drumbeat, each piece resonating through the corridors of the police station and the streets of the town. Officer John Harker, a man who believed in facts over whispers, found himself wrestling with the gravity of the situation. Smithhart's background, once unremarkable, now seemed ominous. The fibers and paint from his workshop, the inconsistencies in his alibi, and his peculiar interest in offering rides to children created a mosaic of suspicion. In an unexpected twist, a witness came forward with a revelation that added fuel to the growing fire. They had seen Smithhart's car near the spot where Mandy was last seen, a detail that contradicted his claim of being elsewhere. The town's fabric, already frayed, seemed to tear a bit more with this revelation. The Mer family, once hopeful, now grappled with a looming despair. Mandy's disappearance, which had once united the town in a common cause, now threatened to tear it apart. The bonds of neighborly trust, once the town's backbone, were being tested as the shadow of guilt loomed over one of their own. Harker, determined to find the truth, delved deeper into Smithhart's past. What he uncovered was a trail of disturbing details, a history of untoward behavior that had somehow slipped through the cracks. Smithhart, it seemed, had carefully constructed a facade of normalcy that was now crumbling under scrutiny. As autumn deepened, bringing with it the harsh Alaskan cold, the town's mood shifted from shock to anger. Parents hugged their children a little tighter, and the streets, once bustling with the chatter of neighbors, fell silent. The community meetings, once a forum for local events and festivities, now turned into tense gatherings where fear and suspicion hung heavily in the air. In a poignant moment, Mandy's friends, Aaron and April, organized a candlelight vigil. The townspeople gathered, each flame a symbol of hope in the growing darkness. The image of Mandy, smiling and full of life, was displayed at the town square, a stark contrast to the grim reality they now faced. As Harker and his team pieced together the puzzle, the evidence against Smithhart grew. Forensic analysis linked the materials found on Mandy's clothing to Smithhart's possessions. The circumstantial evidence was compelling, but Harker knew they needed more to build an irrefutable case. The investigation reached a critical point when a search warrant was executed at Smithhart's residence. The search unearthed further incriminating evidence, deepening the suspicions against him. The town, once a haven of safety, now faced the unsettling reality that the perpetrator of this heinous crime might have been hiding in plain sight. As winter approached, casting long shadows and bringing a biting cold, the case of Mandy Mer seemed to mirror the changing seasons, from the innocence of summer to the harsh, unforgiving reality of winter. Tazlina was changed forever, its innocence lost in the shadow of a crime that had exposed the darkest aspects of human nature. Winter's icy grip had tightened around Tazlina, its cold breath whispering through the streets where Mandy once played. The town, blanketed in snow, mirrored the chilling developments in the investigation. Officer John Harker, who had seen many harsh winters, felt the cold seep into his bones like never before. The case of Mandy Mer had become his burden, a weight he carried through every snow-covered path and silent night. In his office, adorned with maps and notes about the case, Harker reviewed the evidence against Charles Smithhart. It was a complex puzzle, each piece pointing towards Smithhart. Yet Harker knew that in the eyes of the law, every detail mattered. The forensic findings were compelling. The fibers and paint from Smithhart's workshop, the partial alibi, the witness sightings. But it was the testimonies of the town's children that added a haunting dimension to the case. Children who had once seen Smithhart as a benign figure now spoke of unsettling encounters. Offers of rides that seemed innocent at the time now took on a sinister hue. Harker, a father himself, felt a personal sting in these revelations. The investigation had peeled back the layers of a man they thought they knew, revealing the hidden darkness. As the town grappled with this revelation, the Mer family continued their agonizing wait for justice. The holiday season, once a time of joy and togetherness, was now a painful reminder of their loss. Mandy's empty chair at the dinner table was a silent testament to the void in their lives. In a pivotal development, a search of Smithhart's property yielded a crucial piece of evidence, a small, metal fragment found near his workshop. Forensic experts analyzed the fragment, linking it to a tool used by Smithhart. It was a small but significant find, adding another layer to the mounting evidence. The case took a dramatic turn when a past victim of Smithhart came forward, emboldened by the investigation. Her testimony, revealing a pattern of predatory behavior, sent ripples through the courtroom. Smithhart's facade of respectability was crumbling, revealing the history of manipulation and deceit. Harker, with the weight of the evidence, finally felt they had enough to move forward. The district attorney, cautious but convinced by the findings, agreed to prosecute. Smithhart was arrested, the news rippling through Tazlina like a shockwave. The town, once divided by suspicion and fear, now found a semblance of unity in their shared desire for justice. As the trial date approached, the townspeople prepared for a reckoning. It was more than a trial for Smithhart. It was a trial for Tazlina itself. The community, once knave to the evils that could lurk within, was now wiser, but at a heartbreaking cost. In the courtroom, as the evidence was laid bare, the chilling details of Mandy's final moments came to light. The prosecution painted a grim picture of a predator who had masked his true nature behind a veneer of normalcy. Harker, sitting in the courtroom, watched as the jury absorbed the horrifying reality of what had happened to Mandy. The trial, a culmination of months of investigation and anguish, seemed to mirror the harsh Alaskan winter, cold, unforgiving, and stark in its truth. Tazlina had lost its innocence, but in its place, a newfound resilience emerged. The townspeople, bonded by tragedy, found strength in their collective pursuit of justice. As the jury deliberated, the town waited with bated breath. The verdict, when it finally came, was a somber closure to a chapter that had haunted Tazlina for too long. Guilty. The word echoed through the courtroom and into the heart of the town. Smithhart was convicted, his true nature exposed for all to see. The trial's end brought a bitter relief to Tazlina. Justice had been served, but the scars of Mandy's loss would remain. The town had changed, its innocence replaced by a guarded awareness. But in the depths of winter, there was a flicker of hope, a belief that even in the darkest times, justice could prevail, and a community could find its way back to the light. As the harsh Alaskan winter gave way to the first signs of spring, Tazlina began to emerge from the shadow of tragedy. The conviction of Charles Smithhart had brought a sense of closure, but the scars ran deep. The town, once a tapestry of trust and camaraderie, now bore the marks of a community forever changed. For the Mer family, the conviction was a bittersweet end to their harrowing journey. While justice had been served, it did little to fill the void left by Mandy's absence. Her room, still adorned with her belongings, stood as a poignant reminder of what had been lost. Her father, once a pillar of strength, now found solace in solitude, while her mother clung to the memories of her daughter, a balm for her aching heart. Officer John Harker, who had become the embodiment of the town's pursuit of justice, found himself at a crossroads. The case had taken a toll on him, both personally and professionally. He had seen the darkest side of humanity, a side he knew existed, but had never encountered so intimately. In the wake of the trial, he contemplated his future, wondering if he could continue to bear the burden of such responsibilities. The town itself underwent a transformation. Parents held their children a little closer, and neighbors looked out for one another with a newfound vigilance. The innocence that had been lost could never be regained, but in its place grew a stronger sense of community. People who had once been mere acquaintances bonded over their shared experience, finding comfort in their collective resilience. As spring turned to summer, Tazlina slowly began to heal. The annual summer festival, which had been canceled the previous year, was reinstated. It was a different affair this time, more subdued, but it marked a crucial step in the town's recovery. The festival became a tribute to Mandy, a celebration of her life, and a testament to the town's enduring spirit. The school where Mandy had once studied established a memorial in her honor. Her friends, now a year older, spoke of her with a mix of sadness and fondness, keeping her memory alive in their hearts. They planted a tree in the schoolyard, a living symbol of Mandy's spirit, which would grow and flourish just as she had been destined to do. For Harker, the end of the trial did not mean the end of his journey. He found a new purpose in advocating for the safety of children and became a spokesperson for community awareness. He visited schools and community centers, sharing Mandy's story as a cautionary tale and a call to action. His message was clear: vigilance and unity are the keys to protecting the innocent. As the year drew to a close, Tazlina observed the anniversary of Mandy's disappearance. It was a somber day, marked by a candlelight vigil that illuminated the town square. People gathered, not only to remember Mandy, but to reaffirm their commitment to each other. The light from their candles pierced the darkness, a beacon of hope and unity in the face of adversity. The story of Mandy Mer and the town of Tazlina became a poignant reminder of the fragility of innocence and the strength of community. It was a tale of loss and recovery, of darkness and light. In the end, Tazlina found its way back, not to the town it once was, but to a new version of itself, wiser, stronger, and more united than ever before.